Hey guys, what is up? Fracture here. So a couple weeks ago, Bungie announced Destiny 2, and Destiny being my favorite game of all time, it would be stupid of me not to make a video on my thoughts about the next installment. And by the way, please don't murder me in the comments if I mispronounce something, or if something has been patched or changed recently. I haven't played Destiny since the Taken King expansion. When it comes to video games, I like when games have certain classes that define certain roles of what you're supposed to be doing. For example, you have tanks in certain games that absorb a bunch of damage. You have your supports. Your supports support your team. You have the damage dealers. They all have their own specific role on the team. But in Destiny 1, they didn't really have their own specific roles per se. And what I mean by that is, none of the classes play differently from each other. If you played a hunter, you would play the exact same way as you would play if you were a titan or a warlock. They didn't really change up gameplay too much. But I like where Bungie is going with Destiny 2. These subclasses seem a little differentiated from each other to make them more role-based, in my opinion. So now every class has their own, mini ultimate, I would say. Titans have a little shield they can drop down for cover for their teammates. Hunters have a roll or a dodge type of thing, and warlocks have an AoE heal or damage boosting thing that I cannot remember what it's called. To me, it seems like now Bungie's trying to make each class, the hunter, titan, warlock, have their own specific roles to fulfill on a fire team, such as the hunter being the damage dealer, the titan being the tank, and the warlock being a support type of character. So now to me it looks like it's going to be even more cooperative than Destiny 1, because now it looks like you need that support warlock or you need that damage dealing hunter on your team to finish these certain missions or just make it easier on your fire team in general instead of running the 3 titans, the 3 warlocks as they used to in Destiny 1. So the 3 new subclasses that Bungie has announced so far is the Dawnblade for the Warlock, the Sentinel for the Titans, and the Arcstrider for the Hunters. To me, the Warlock Dawnblade looks a lot like you're a flying Sunbreaker Titan. They look just about the same thing. You're like throwing these fiery projectiles that do a shit ton of damage. Or the Hunter Arcstrider, the new one, it just looks like you extended your knife from a Blade Dancer class from number 1, and you're just doing flips and shit like an acrobat. But the one I'm most excited for so far is the Sentinel class for the Titans. Now you're motherfucking Captain America. And they are bringing back a bunch of old subclasses, which I'm actually kind of happy about, like the Striker, the Gunslinger, and the Voidwalker classes. They haven't shown the Voidwalker class yet for the Warlocks, which I'm really excited to see what they do or what they might change with it. But the Gunslinger has not changed since the last game, but the Striker has changed a whole lot. The ultimate now, you can run around and use Fist of Havoc multiple times instead of just once like in the first game. So overall, I'm not really that excited for the new subclasses as I thought I would be, but it doesn't look like they'll change a whole lot, but I guess we'll see when the beta comes out. In case you didn't know, Destiny 2 is overhauling the weapons system. In case you don't know about all the changes, I'll just explain really briefly here, but if you already know about it, skip to the number I put on the screen. So in Destiny 1, you had 3 weapon slots. The first weapon slot had hand cannons, auto rifles, scout rifles, and pulse rifles in them. They did not have any burn damage or elemental damage, which I'll get on in a tiny bit. The next slot had your special weapons, which included shotguns, sidearms, snipers, and fusion rifles. But nobody cares about those. And these special weapons would have these extra little damage types on them, which were called burn damages or elemental damages. Now there are 3 types. There are the arc, there's a solar, and then there's the void type of damage. Certain enemies are weak to certain types of damages. So for example, let's say this guy right here had an arc shield and you had an arc special weapon and you used it against him, his shield would be down a lot faster than it would be if you used a solar weapon. And then your last slot was the heavy weapons, and these included machine guns and launchers. I'm 90% sure that all of the heavy weapons had an elemental damage on it, but I think there might have been a couple exceptions where they didn't have any. But the heavy weapons obviously hit a lot harder and do way more damage than the other 2 types of weapon slots. So now on to the new stuff. So now primary slots are not really called primary weapons anymore, they're now called kinetic weapons. These primary weapons don't have any elemental damages at all, they're just plain stock damage dealing weapons. So the kinetic weapon slot has the exact same weapons as before, but now with the added submachine gun class. Alright, so now here's where the big changes come in. Now the next slot, instead of special weapons, it's energy weapons. And these have all been changed. The types of weapons that are in this slot are all different now. So now the snipers, shotguns, the sidearms, and the fusion rifles are all kicked out, and now they're just being replaced with all the primary type weapons. Now all these primary type weapons that are going to be in this the energy slot already have elemental damages on them. So how this technically works is that I could have a scout rifle or any type of gun that I want as my kinetic primary slot. And this kinetic weapon would not have any elemental damage, it wouldn't do anything extra against certain types of enemies, it'd just be a plain old gun. But then I could switch over to, let's say, the same type of gun, like another hand cannon or another pulse rifle, as the energy slot, and they have their own elemental damages, which would hurt certain types of enemies with shields. So it's almost like having two primary slots. And the last slot we have changed is from the heavy weapons to power weapons. The old special weapons will now be joining the power weapons in the last slot, such as the snipers, the shotguns, and the fusion rifles, but not the sidearms. I think they're staying in the energy weapon slot. Alright, so now that I'm done explaining all that new stuff, let's get on to what I think about the changes. I like what they're doing with the two primaries, and one of them having an elemental burn and then the one doesn't. I like that, because I never really used my special class in the first game. I never used my sniper or my shotgun unless I absolutely had to. But the power weapons seem really strange to me. I think that it's weird that they're gonna add these snipers and shotguns in the class where the rocket launchers and the machine guns go. But I thought, like, how are they gonna balance that? Because why would I pick a shotgun over a freaking rocket launcher? But they later revealed that they said that they were going to use ammo drops to kind of balance this. So let's say you get the one heavy ammo pickup, you would get one rocket, but you could also get 5 sniper rounds. So it'll be balanced in that sort of way. I wonder if they're going to make these really hard-hitting shotguns or really like heavy sniper rifles that could just decimate people. That would be really cool. So back in Destiny 1,
on that sick Xbox 360, bro,
I was a beast at the Crucible. I was poning noobs with a Thorn and the Fatebringer, and I really enjoyed all the different types of game modes. Me and a couple of friends would sometimes do the Trials of Osiris with a 3v3, and that got really competitive, and then that made it fun. And sometimes just after like a stressful day at school or something, I just want to come home and pwn some noobs in the 6v6 mayhem. But what I don't understand is, why are they making every Crucible match 4 players on each team? It's just weird. It's like limiting the amount of chaos in some of the game modes, which make them fun, and it's making each game way more competitive. It's trying to make Destiny's Crucible a very competitive place to be, which is technically what it's supposed to be. But I say the more the merrier. Like, when it was 6v6 elimination, I thought that was really, like, just the best fucking thing to do when you just had a long day at school and you just want to go home and relax and shoot some people in the face. That was fun. I liked the amount of people in that game, and it just made it very, very fun. It didn't make it so tense and that you needed to win all the time. It didn't matter if you really lost or won. I think that's what Trials is for. Trials is that really competitive scene that you have to be a team and play all the time with. So I kind of want to compare this to Overwatch for a minute. I know they're not even remotely similar at all, but think about this as like quick play versus ranked mode. In quick play, you can just do just about anything you want. You can try to win, which you could do in the Crucible with like 6v6, you know, just have some random fun. But if you really came there to win, then you would go into Trials of Osiris and same thing in ranked mode in Overwatch. But it doesn't make sense to me trying to make every game be very tense and very, very competitive. And not every game mode should be competitive, I don't. It's gonna be some people are gonna want to be there to win, and some people are just gonna be there just to have fun. And when you mix those two together, the toxicity is real. Toxicity is real, boys. I hate to bring up Overwatch again, but I got it when it first came out, and this is before ranked mode came out, and everybody was in quick play. And when everybody was in quick play, there were some people there to win, and some people were not, and then everybody just started yelling at each other because some of them didn't want to try as hard as the other team did, and the toxicity was just everywhere. And technically, it still kind of is, but it's a lot less than what it used to be. So what I'm getting at is that the less people there are in a game, and the more game modes that have less people that you're depending on your teammates, the more competitive each game is. And sometimes people don't want to be so competitive just to shoot at the other players. Sometimes people just want to have random mayhem fun. And that is really all I have to say about that. It looks like Destiny's finally going to get a cohesive base campaign right off the bat. It looks a lot like Bungie knows where they want to take the story of Destiny and how to implement it into the game this time. For proof of this, like, technically The Taken King was the first real cinematic story campaign there really was, where we didn't have to read any Grimoire cards to understand what was actually going on. And it looks like the campaign is going to take us to 4 new worlds: the Nessus, the European Dead Zone, Io, and Titan, which is ironically kind of named. I was actually kind of hoping for more areas, but it seems like they want to make them more open and explorable than the first game was, so I guess I'm perfectly fine with just 4 so far. What I hated the most about the first game was the emptiness of the areas. I hated doing patrols, they were so freaking boring. But what I am really looking forward to is the lost sectors and the adventures. Now in the Bungie live stream when they first revealed Destiny 2, they talked a little bit about each of these. Now, the adventures just seem like cinematic side quests that you'd find something equivalent to in the Witcher series. But what I'm really excited for is these lost sectors. Now, Bungie described them as dungeons full of loot, and that just sounds badass. And one of the most things I'm thankful for about the second installment of Destiny is that now we can launch any activity when we are not in orbit. Thank God, I hated going to orbit. During the live stream, my heart kind of sank when the Activision CEO came on stage. I thought he was going to announce some kind of season pass for the expansions, and I thought they were going to do the thing where they locked away a big part of the game again, which I really hope they wouldn't have done. But I guess we don't really know much about that right now, but thank God he didn't. Instead, he announced that they had a partnership with Blizzard to use Blizzard app to host Destiny 2. And I don't know if you know, but I'm a PC player. I'm not going to play on consoles because number one, I don't have one and I don't have money to buy it. But I thought this was a really odd choice. Like, why didn't Activision put Destiny 2 on Steam like they did with Infinite Warfare and their other titles? And it's Blizzard putting a non-Blizzard game into Battle.net. It's just really weird. But hey, at least it's not Origin. And that is where I'm going to wrap this up. So, see you next week. Fracture out.